Greetings, salutations, talofa. Buenos dias. Actually, buenos noches. Welcome to a brand new episode of The Doorman. We are your guys. Evangelist.
Steven in the building.
Well, you know what? This is kind of like a take two because you'll see.
Yeah.
We're over here yapping. We're over here yapping, and then
on a good topic.
the camera stopped rolling, and then we were just over here still yapping. Anyway,
A bunch
so
of assholes.
yeah, no one told us anything. Like this was a live stream.
Our director didn't
God,
say shit to us.
No one.
Okay.
Fucks.
He's
Anyway,
fired.
we were on a couple week hiatus. I just came back from Alaska, as we were discussing before. Alaska's state number 49.
Yep.
Purchased it from the Russians.
You think we would have at least Googled the...
Yeah, you know, but again, we're not here to be factual. We're not here to be.
It became a state between sometime 0 AD and today.
Yeah, and then we're not very keen on any real facts about anything.
Nope.
But we're hoping that we move you with whatever conversation that we're having.
Yes.
So, wife and I and some other family members, we did a cruise out of Seattle up to Alaska, up to Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, made a little stop in Canada, saw our Canadian neighbors.
Canada?
Yeah, out there in Victoria, Canada. Cool little spot.
Fuck off.
Did a lot of drinking as we always do. Wife and I, we are just we enjoy ourselves when it comes to the drink.
Well, hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. Now we just had a fantastic time. I got a chance to share this experience with my brother and his wife.
Hey.
Just an awesome time.
Fantastic.
A lot of eating.
Yeah.
A lot of eating.
Not a mess.
Dude, if you've not gone on a Carnival cruise, you got to go and try it. Everything is at your fingertips. Everything is within reach, right? Within walking distance.
You go bowling?
It's a floating city. No, we didn't do anything like that. We did a lot of casino. We spent a lot of time in the casino on the boat.
Did you win?
Won a bit, lost a lot. Right? So you win and then you play it right back. It
Just
goes
like
right
Vegas.
back into
Just like Vegas.
But a great time. We had an awesome time, man. Did a lot of rest, relaxation, exploring. Juneau, what a place. We did some dog sledding out there in Juneau, but we weren't in the snow. We were just because in Juneau, if you don't know, in the lower parts or next, of course the port city is sea level, so you've got to go a lot higher up in order to catch snow. But they do have a training camp for the dogs that are going to participate in the Iditarod. And then so we went to the little training camp and we get pulled around in this. It's an actual 6-seater golf cart that they've taken out the engine and they strap the dogs to it, and then the dogs.
It's wheels? Everything?
Wheels.
Oh,
and then the dogs pull it around a track. And these guys are smashing. 16 dogs whipping around these corners at approximately 25 miles an hour.
You and your brother got in, the dogs looked back and they were like, what?
Bro, exactly. Well, actually, my brother didn't go. It was just my wife and I that went on this excursion. But there were some heavyweights, including myself. And then as we're whipping, men, poor old man, right? There's men, a couple sitting in front of me. The guy had to be in his 70s. Heavy set guy. As the thing is whipping, this guy is grabbing the different parts of the cart because he's whipping around, and I'm over here thinking to myself, these guys have it under control. These dogs, these dogs run this track all the time. If there was some type of a danger factor and we could possibly tip over, this wouldn't happen. So I'm over there in the back, just all trusting. Come to find out, those things tip.
Yeah, golf carts tip.
Golf carts tip, yeah. So, and I was over there these guys know exactly what they're doing. We're fine. So I was looking at the man in front of us, and he's grabbing every part of the cart as it's whipping around. And I thought, man, this guy's got nothing. That's poor old man. He's got nothing to worry about. He doesn't even know.
Right.
Yeah,
Sometimes he was on the last cart.
Yeah, he had done this before. Man.
He's facing his fears. Bucket list.
Dude, and I thought I smelled shit. I mean, that's how bad. I was like, all right, Yeah. Anyway, great time there.
As we were talking on our last one, whilst you
Yeah.
were away, the anniversary of September 11th,
Yeah.
22 years ago.
22 years, bro.
I was 20, you were 23, 24.
23.
That's a crazy amount of time to think.
Crazy.
When you think it was, almost like yesterday. Obviously, it wasn't. But
I remember the exact room I was in.
What
my
were you
house.
doing that day?
I was getting ready to go to work, and the television was on, and I remember I was putting on my socks, and I look up at the TV screen, and I thought, this has got to be a joke. It's got to be some kind of a prank. You know what I mean? And sure enough, dude, the second plane hits as I'm watching the news coverage, and it was unreal.
Yeah.
It was so unreal. I just thought, is the world ending? I was like, are we being invaded by?
Right.
We're being invaded by aliens.
Martians.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was. I think it was my first day off in a lot of months from my job I had at the time at Blockbuster Video, I believe it was.
Oh shit.
And my mom had said something like, "Hey, come look at the TV," and I looked, and I remember thinking kind of the same thing, like, "What the hell is that?" Like, I knew it was the World Trade Center. I knew it was in Manhattan. I knew there was some sort of problem. But watching the reports on the news, nobody really knew
What was going on?
what happened. People had said there was a plane. Other people said there was an explosion. Nobody knew the size of the plane. Nobody really knew what happened. As we came to find out, it was a terrorist attack, and 2 planes hit the World Trade Center. 1 hit the Pentagon, and then that Flight 93. There were 4 planes total that were hijacked. But I was showing Shelby, who's I would say slightly younger than I.
A lot younger.
She was in 3rd grade when it
Exactly.
happened.
You were
and-
20.
yeah.
She was 8.
Yes, that's a terrible way to think about it, but
Yeah.
we are where we are.
Yeah.
So I was talking to, like, showing her the footage on YouTube of the news coverage of as it happened. And in 3rd grade, when they're showing you this thing, you're an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever. You don't understand what's happening. You don't understand the long-term effects that this is going to cause. And even at 20, I didn't understand what was going to be the long-term effect on our country that day. But it's interesting to take different people's perspective into account of that day. That particular day, Shelby was in 3rd grade. You were
23.
23. I was 20. And we have 3 very different perspectives of what happened that day. But I watched a documentary called Fahrenheit 9/11, not Fahrenheit 9/11, and you had brought up the questions, why it took a situation like that for America to unite. For the brief time it was united.
Right.
And I think it's because America's innocence at that time, or vulnerability, was exposed. Maybe not innocence,
Sure.
but the vulnerability was exposed. And watching the documentary and watching the news coverage of that day, of the actual New York news, right? Not California news, not KTLA. It was actually news broadcast from New York. And this one guy said something that was so obvious, but nobody really thought about it at that point. That building was the most secure building in Lower Manhattan at that time, on the floor. But the most vulnerable building in the world past the lobby.
Okay.
Which, the people who did what they did knew that if they destroyed the building up high, there was nothing anybody could do about it.
Yeah.
And watching that documentary, as you said, what questions that we'll never know the answers to because we're just nobodies. All planes across the United States were grounded.
Yeah.
Every single plane was grounded at that moment. If you were in the air when it happened, you were flying over Utah, your plane landed somewhere you weren't supposed to.
That day.
That day. But there was one plane
Mm-hmm.
flying out of the United States. It was a CIA plane
Mm-hmm.
that had family members
Of
the Bin Ladens,
right.
which
Because
is yes,
they were Saudi Arabia royal family
right.
or royal family affiliates, something like that.
Yeah, those people knew the right people. We'll
Right.
tell you that.
Right.
But you asked, so I was never one in even years after, up until I watched this documentary actually.
Okay.
Never one that believed in the conspiracy theories of what happened
Right.
on September 11th. Never one to think that our government wouldn't be so fucking low down that they would bring those buildings down on purpose.
Right.
Um,
Are you a conspiracy theorist now when it comes to that?
I mean, I have questions. I don't think the government thought it was going to go the way it did. I don't think that they exploded the buildings. I definitely don't think that happened. I don't think there were bombs in the lower levels just in case the planes didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they sat in a room and thought, okay, we're going to kill everybody in this building and we're not going to give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they had an idea. I do think they knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that they thought it was going to go down the way it did.
All right.
Because I firmly believe on an hourly basis, if not minutes, the United States of America is constantly fielding threats.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
And that's why security is heightened up until, I think it's the beginning of September, up until maybe mid-September, especially in the airports. Because nobody wants a repeat,
Mm-hmm.
right? But people who say that there are bombs in the lower levels don't understand gravity and force and weight.
Okay.
I did a lot of research on those buildings when it happened.
Okay.
The buildings were made or finished in 1967, I believe. Built from the inside out, so the last pieces on that building were the bottom pieces of glass for the windows.
Okay.
So up, out, and down, right?
Okay.
That beam in the middle was designed to move with the wind, designed to take impact of a small jet, helicopter, never designed to take that type of heat and explosiveness from an airliner.
Okay.
So when the buildings fell, the first building fell this way because it was lower. The second building that got hit fell first.
Right.
But when it fell this way because the metal pole inside of it sheared off because of the heat. And jet heat burns way hotter than we'll ever want to find out. The second building that fell like dominoes, kind of, because the weight.
Kind of like a collapsing.
Yeah,
building.
the weight of each floor above it. There was, hundreds of thousands of tons of concrete and metal in that building. So one floor goes and lands, and then there's that floor gets weak, and then it's that is the little puffs of dust that you see come out of the windows.
So you're saying it was the impact of one floor falling
Yeah.
onto the other floor.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact of one floor falls onto the other floor. That floor then collapses and falls onto the
Right,
next floor.
and you have the weight, so you have the first 30 floors of that building falling on the rest of the floor. Every time it falls, it gains more and more and more and more weight.
momentum. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think the government was at least behind it in knowing, in the intelligence of knowing it was
Okay.
coming.
Sure.
But I don't think that they set out that day to kill 3,800 Americans.
There's a couple of things I want to go back on, right? So of course we all, like you said, you, myself, and you were talking with Shelby about it. We each have our own little takes,
Mm-hmm.
Our own little memories of what happened that day, where we were,
Right.
what we felt, whether we were, charging into the patriotism, whether what it was we were doing. Of course, myself, I've always, I was programmed. We're American, right? So I was programmed as to be absolutely, a patriotic in belief about this country. I grew up saluting the flag saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. So that wasn't an issue for me. But what began to, happen afterward, right? Like all of these policies that took off as far as like privacy, the privacy of American citizens began to be non-existent.
The Patriot Act.
The Patriot Act, right? The Patriot Act rolled out, and then so they had this little, what would you call it? A key. Anytime they wanted to investigate a person's phone calls, a person's correspondence, emails, whatever it was.
That is why I think they did what they did.
But this, when I had heard, and I really didn't think anything of it, right? I just heard about it and I thought, wow, that's kind of funny. I wasn't into government. I didn't pay attention to politics whatsoever. I thought I was the guy who thought Bill Clinton was cool in the 90s, right? I saw him on Arsenio Hall playing the saxophone. I was like, this guy is cool.
Getting blowies in the Oval Office.
Sure, yeah. Heard the
What a
story about
legend.
the Lewinsky cigar. Anyway.
Scumbag.
So, I mean, that my thoughts on politics and my thoughts on the government were kind of like, whatever. But when I heard about this Patriot Act thing, I thought, that's funny. That's real wild, because what a way to roll this thing out, because the government is meant to govern, right? Without us as citizens to govern, there's no real purpose. Correct. Right. There's no real purpose for the existence of this government. They're looking to govern the population of the U.S. And what better way, right. to put even more weight behind their authority, right? Than to remove your privacy, allow themselves to take a peek into your personal life whenever they want it, right? Investigate everything they want to know about you as a person, personal life, professional life, right? Then this Patriot Act. What better way to kick this whole thing off? And then what better way to kick this Patriot Act off but to have a situation like this happen?
Expose a fear
that
most Americans would not want to happen again.
And then
use that as the catalyst to have your Patriot Act be...
Use that as a catalyst. It's always about them being the solution. The government is the solution. Why do they need to be able to delve into your privacy? Because they're the solutions. These guys are the ones who can provide you all the anything you need, all of your necessities, right? Your safety, your whatever, right? So all of a sudden they roll out this red carpet on this Patriot Act, to be able to peek into your everyday life if they want.
Right.
So I thought, and then I started talking to other people, right? So my brother went to UCR, and then he hung out with a circle of Pakistanis and Indians. Some of the Pakistanis were Muslims. So I thought, hey, what better,
Go to the source.
Pakistanis are
Muslims. I'm saying
Muslims. Yeah, so I wanted to know, what did you guys think about this situation? And of course, they have a totally different way of looking at it, right? Their perspective had something to do with America. It has been doing, all of these little backdoor interactions,
rotten things for years.
Yeah, and for years in these other countries, right? Because America, we've always thought that we are going to be the police of the world. We're going to be the enforcers of and promote democracy all over the planet. And then
stick their nose in other people's business.
Sure, right? And then so they began to tell me how they felt, right? And then that not that the act was right, not that the act of these terrorists were right, but the sentiment behind these acts.
It's the same thing with Hitler that we've discussed in the past. His idea, terrible execution, absolutely garbage.
Right.
there's not a single thing about that situation in the Holocaust that was good.
Yeah.
But
Nothing about
the sentiment, as you say,
Yeah.
the reasoning behind that idea was solid.
Okay, explain that.
So, I think I've said it on a previous episode, but Hitler wanted all of the Jewish people gone because there are several people tried to start businesses or do something on their own, and Jewish people had all the money.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd say no and then go start that same idea or use that idea and make it their own. And
Why couldn't the Germans go and get their money?
well, because it's just like me and you going to a bank for a loan, right? You go to the people who have the money and they say no, and you're like, well, fuck. So again, his execution was terrible, but he wanted to rid his country of the people that essentially were bullying him and other people. Because if you look at the timeline of when he started his bullshit to when he ended his bullshit, it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
But
late 30s, mid 30s, somewhere around there.
yeah, I think it was. I mean, considering the amount of people that he decimated, was not a very long process.
Mm-hmm.
But he had some decent. He started kindergarten. Kindergarten's Hitler's idea. To have a place for the kids to go where they could learn and be safe away from the war. Again, I'm not by any means a Hitler fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was a good guy. He had his definite mistakes. But the sentiment and the reasoning behind his initial idea was to preserve a country's ideology, maybe, or
Way of life, way of being, existence.
Yeah.
The Aryan way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
White power.
Yeah.
Again, terrible
Anyway.
execution.
Yeah, terrible idea, right? Terrible idea.
I work
but-
with a German guy. He says all the time, Hitler's an absolute piece of shit for what he did, but he was in Germany. I
Right.
mean, he was, at the foot of all of this. Not during, obviously, he's not that old,
Yeah.
but grew up in that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a completely different viewpoint on Hitler's initial ideas
That made sense to them.
there than it is here.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to our my discussions with the Pakistanis circle that my brother hung out with. So yeah, just like Stephen is explaining about the perspectives of the Germans at the time, and Hitler or whatever. These Pakistani Muslims, they explained how they know or they speak to a lot of other Muslims from their homeland that are they were sick of the colonial practice of going into these countries and creating situations where they become reliant on their way,
Mm-hmm.
right? It wasn't enough for them to go and siphon all the resources from these different countries and
Right.
apply their own authority, but drawing even like the Pakistani and Indian border was something that was placed there by Europeans, by white Europeans and whatnot. So, this whole sentiment about America's dealings in global policing, it just has a bad taste in the mouths of these foreigners, right?
Right.
People from other countries. So
So that's what happens when you do stick your nose in everybody's
Sure.
business and you try to apply your authority to everybody in the world.
Mhm.
I mean, bullies get bullied.
Sure.
Right? Bullies get theirs, and we've been bullies for a very, very long time.
we have been, and of course, Stephen and I are absolute like America loving
Right.
men, right? We love our country, but there's so many things, right?
But we also
that
stay fact.
we try to state things that we understand, and we're not saying we understand everything perfectly, right? But if we have these conversations, and hopefully you guys are having some of these same conversations, then we can all kind of come to a conclusion at some point. Maybe in the distant future, but still at some point we'll all be able to hear each other's perspectives on things, and then come to at least come together on certain things.
We can go back to September 11th, 2001 at about 9 o'clock at night when everybody was a patriot.
Sure.
And everybody was on the same page. And
Sure.
all the differences were ignored.
Yeah. I mean, there's always talk nowadays about, hey, is this, is being a nationalist, is it the way to go, right? Because a lot of these, especially younger people, are pushing for this kind of global agenda. They're like, hey man, erase all borders, bro, and then we're all gonna be, one big happy global family and blah blah blah. But so yeah, is this nationalist way of life the way to go? I believe, and I believe Stephen believes that, yeah, right? Like when you draw borders around your country, it isn't just some invisible line, right? It's an agreement that we, within this border, have a certain way of thinking about things.
Right.
We, within this border, have a certain way of doing things. And then so the idea is that we can all at least agree on this set of rules, on this foundational ground rules for all of us within these borders. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to build on that, right? To better ourselves as individuals, and then reach the neighborhood, the circles around us, everything in proximity. That's what this whole country thing is about, right? Now, going back to the 9/11 situation, so we come to all of these initial agreements, and we're up to 2001, and then we experience this 9/11 situation, and then things become to be a little different. That the practices were changed at some point with this Patriot Act thing. So we began to kind of like see the evils of government, the evils of big government, become more expressed onto us.
Because it was pretty quick how they enabled the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
I think it was almost by the end of that year.
Yeah.
The Patriot Act was,
and it was, to everyone, it just seemed like a good idea, right? Yeah, man, yeah. Who needs privacy? Because our we want to know where the terrorists are.
Or they think, oh, I have nothing to hide.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Not knowing that you are in favor of this Patriot Act and you've just given up every ounce of your privacy.
Right. So freedoms, right? Which is what we as Americans have always taken for granted. All of these freedoms of speech and freedom of just freedom of choice, period. Mm-hmm. As long as we're following these guidelines that we've all agreed on, like murder is bad, theft is bad. That began to kind of be shaky. Like there was a gray line,
right,
surrounding what your freedoms consisted of, right? Because the government can now like poke their nose here in their own backyards to your life, right. My life.
Well, also too, yeah. Oh, you want to know what your neighbor's doing because he's doing some sketchy stuff in the night. Okay, we'll give you the Patriot Act, but we're gonna listen to YouTube.
Right.
And nobody heard the listen to YouTube part.
It became a practice, whenever they felt that they could, they had the probable cause, they could just listen in on your phone calls, and we didn't really know the specific rules, that
still don't know.
No, we still don't know. We haven't done any real research, but the idea is that, hey, this event happened, and then all of a sudden they rolled out these new set of rules, and then here we are, right? All these years later, it's been 22 years, as Stephen pointed out. We've come to an era. We're practicing this social media culture now. We've got technology at an even more intense point now, and privacy is gone, right?
Yeah.
Patriot Act kind of ushered in this no privacy deal now. Everyone's business is just blaring out there, And now they've made it cool, right? They've made it cool. Everyone films themselves, right? Now you're on social media 24 hours a day, right? Yeah. Steven and I are doing this podcast, but you know, it doesn't. It's not like a peek into our entire lives.
Yeah, we're not live streaming our day.
Right.
Every day.
We're just, you know, bringing out the idea that, you know, conversation is good. Sharing your ideas is a good thing, and hopefully they're ideas that are going to be like, you know, promoting a good life.
You know what I was thinking too?
yourself.
Can you imagine if something like that happened today? The news of what actually happened, the threat that was there would have gone to everybody in the world within minutes.
Within seconds, right? Because someone will upload the video and then, or live stream the video, and then everyone, how quickly that thing will go viral. Everyone will have this, you know, access to it right away.
Right.
Crazy thing about it now, though, is that we think that access to whatever's going on at that moment is a benefit to us.
Right.
But
it's not.
It isn't, right? Because how many perspectives? Because we like, as you said, right? We all experienced that day. You, myself, Shelby, and I've never spoken to Carissa about that day and what she was doing, but I'm sure she has a perspective or a memory of it. Right. But all of us experienced that day and have very different memories, have very different feelings about it, have, you know, had very different reactions to it. So the human experience is that it's the different reactions, the different experiences, different.
Right.
It's the differences. It's all about your individual view,
right,
and your individual way of dealing with things and processing it and this and that. And then the idea is that we comfortably come together and share these reactions, interactions,
right,
and then we develop a big picture to kind of give us this way forward, right? That would be the ideal thing. But what you have, right, are a bunch of people who really don't care about a big picture, moving forward efficiently, right? Everyone's like convenience first. Let's be as convenient, pleasure seeking, taking an easy route. Instant gratification. So all of that shit kind of skews this way forward, right? Even in the way that we, you know, utilize this tool, this camera, right? The human experience is so flawed, and we have come to a place where we don't really care about making that flaw as best as it possibly can be. What we're caring about now is how can all of these instant gratifications be met? Right? That's what we're at.
How can they benefit?
How can we benefit? How can we find the pleasure that we seek? How can we find this like happiness that we seek? Right? That's where we're at with it all. So there's no concern with, guys, we can all, if we all just sat and powwowed and then like thought of what's the best way to take us all in a specific direction towards good, towards towards maybe distributing as much of the resources as we can amongst those who put their efforts in. You know what I mean? Or maybe just at least bringing these access to resources out there, making it more available for anyone who puts in the effort. Right? Like none of that is there.
Well, it's also like I said in our original recording that we thought was going. I think that at least for the day, every year on that day, that footage should be what they play everywhere, on the news, everywhere.
Yeah.
Because that day obviously will live in infamy for the result, the way we live today.
Yeah.
But people forget that you just forgot all your bullshit.
Yeah.
For almost the rest of the month, 2.5 weeks. There was no bullshit. There was no people getting beat up because they're a certain color or because they're a certain way of life. People just forgot all that bullshit for a very, very short time, and just people were people. And not that that would help,
Let me
but
ask
it
you a
would
question.
definitely ring the bell.
So your memory of that and this exact thing that you're saying right now, could that have anything to do with how you reacted, right? Because you became this ultra patriotic person, looking to enlist, looking to go and fight the bad guys. Could this thought that you're expressing right now, could that have anything to do with how you reacted? That we were unified, or that we were?
Yeah, I mean, I was always like you, raised to respect the flag, respect the military, respect people who are in charge. And I was in the recruiter's office on September 12th, 2001. But I think I was more at the time, once the news put out what they had said happened, I was more pissed off at the fact that it happened. So I don't think it had any effect on my patriotism at all.
Well, the reason why I asked is because you saw this unifying thing. You saw this unifying aspect of that day, right? And then just because I was curious, and just because I had known that my brother, he'd started hanging out with these Muslims, right? Because they were going to UCR with him. I went and spoke to those guys, and then I didn't get that. I didn't get that thought that, oh, everyone is unified, right? Just because I was looking for the contrarians, right? I found the contrarians, and they gave me a perspective of their own, right? And I just have this really adventurous spirit. I don't want to just see what I'm seeing, right? Because at first I thought, well, there is something unifying going on, right? There is something real patriotic going on, but because I wanted to hear, like, I'm always looking for this bigger picture. I'm always looking for like a broader perspective or a broader view of what's actually going on, because I know we don't know everything.
Right.
I know we don't see everything. Let's say that we don't see everything. There's like huge missing chunks of this puzzle that we're missing.
Yeah.
On any given subject matter.
We're not high enough on the food chain to ever know that.
Absolutely not, right? I mean, I'm curious is all hell. So when I did speak to these guys and they did provide me that feedback, I thought, wow, we're not, there is some sort of division. And then I started to kind of like be more conscious and aware of that population here in the U.S., right? More population of the Muslims, and I thought, they're wow, these people could possibly be mistreated right now. And then let's fast forward to when Barack Obama was running for president, right? I even thought, wow, his name kind of sounded similar to Bin Laden, Obama, or something. You know what I mean? Like I thought, wow, there's still this dividing factor, and then boom, he becomes president. And I thought, okay, maybe these divisions are somehow becoming erased. You know what I mean? So like, I bring all this up to say, like, what I always kind of point to. The idea is to like share these ideas. The idea is to express your view, express what it is, with the intention, right? Like, the hope is that when you express whatever it is you're expressing, there's an intention of moving to a better place.
Right.
Right? A better place of having more available to you and the people around you, right? Having more resources, information, knowledge, know-how, right?
Right.
To make just a better proximity, a better space around yourself, and a better space around,
Yeah.
your reach.
Well, I'll tell you. Initially, I as I said, I was angry that it happened, and then systematically they let out portions of what they want the general public to know. And I remember thinking at that time, they're only telling us what they want us to know. Right?
Absolutely.
They're only telling us the bits and pieces of, because again, if you watch that footage today, knowing what you know now, and watch that broadcast of New York Channel 4 and, you know, Good Day New York and all these things, you'll see the different perspectives of the news and the people calling into those news channels based on what they want the public to know. Because initially some guy called in and said he saw a jet airliner crashed in the World Trade Center. It was a big plane, 747. The person on the news kept insisting, "Sir, that's not confirmed. We don't know that. Don't say that again. You know, we're trying not to get the public in an outrage." And the building's fucking on fire with the size of a plane hole in it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
I think I remember that.
yeah. So, you know, and then even when it got to like the national news broadcast,
Right.
like, you know, Good Morning America,
Right.
or anything that was even local, because I was in Colorado at the time, and I remember the newscasters in Colorado were telling people in downtown Denver to not go to downtown Denver, and I remember thinking, who the fuck gives a shit about downtown Denver? Like, the tallest building downtown Denver, you could probably throw a football over at the time. You know, and it's just like, you know, and I remember thinking on the grand scheme of things, New York has the biggest group of people in an area that they can. I remember thinking that or Disneyland, right?
That they could bomb.
Like, you could just crash a plane around Disneyland and kill 10,000 people like that. But I remember watching it and seeing the different, as I said, the different areas of the United States reporting it. And it was always, "Sir, we don't know, until somebody on New York Channel 9 said there is reports on the ticker saying this is a confirmed terrorist attack, and they never brought it up again. They never said that. They said it one time, and nobody ever said terrorist until the Pentagon was hit. And then they said, oh, well, this has to be, and they didn't even say terrorist, this has to be done on purpose. This is systematically done on purpose.
Right.
And then they went from that to there was 4 planes. We lost 1 plane. It's just, you know, again, they're giving you like just enough to keep you watching.
Right.
And they never went to commercial.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
They just enough of constant all day news.
Yeah.
Right? Of just little bits of information. Even when the buildings fell.
Let's veer down another hallway in this thing, like a little different rabbit hole, right? Isn't it wild that once they get a news story like this, that they do exactly that tactic, right? Where they just want you watching them. Right? That's what's important to them at that time.
Right.
How many eyes can we get? So what is it about our viewership, right? Are we truly being programmed every time we watch what it is you remember those movies that were, they'd be about this like these space aged cities and whatnot, and they would have the big teleprompter, and they'd have this like dictator speaking to his population. Think about Hunger Games, right? And they'd have his face blasted on these big ass screens, and then telling like the entire population of these cities, like exactly what's expected of them. This is what they're gonna give you. What
What you're gonna do.
What you're gonna do. We are these 9/11 and whatever other, like nowadays is like the Trump indictments, and then or it's gonna be, the Hunter Biden laptop indictments, and then so all they want you
He got
to do.
indicted, by the way, you know?
Oh, did he?
On
On a gun charge. Oh, okay, I heard about that. So all of these things are tools that they use to get your attention. Watching them on the teleprompter just like the Hunger Games.
I think it goes even further than that. That they're trying to get your attention and trying to get their perspective buried in your head.
Buried in your head.
Buried in
We
your
are
thought
constantly being programmed.
process.
Right. So if we don't control what it is we look at, if we don't control, and then we mindlessly tune in to these idiotic perspectives
Yeah.
blaring, and you remember that little crazy little video that went viral about all of the different newscasters spouting the same line,
Yeah.
and then they would just overlap all of the different
Around the country.
right, about misinformation,
Yeah.
right, about, and it was during the whole COVID thing, right. If we don't understand how important it is for them to program us, and then for them to know how you respond to this programming
Right.
via the Patriot Act,
Right.
right? So they're programming us, then they're watching how you're responding, and then they're looking to reprogram and watching and we are just being manipulated into becoming these little puppets, right?
Yeah.
And we're just these mindless drones. We're these sheep following each other to the end of the fucking cliff, and they're just watching us go. But in the process, they're collecting all of our wool,
Right.
right? Because the wool is gonna, so that wool, it could be an analogy for anything.
Is going to
your
provide
money,
the
right?
president's sheets.
Yeah. So your our tax dollars. We're just mindlessly providing our tax dollars to them, and they're doing whatever the hell they want, right? And we're looking at it now, and we're seeing how they're sending it to the Ukraine, they're sending it to this place, and they're sending it to that place, and then they're just, and we're bickering, and we're doing this, right? I think, because I'm always about solutions. I don't want to just rant and not have any kind of a. I think our push as the American population has to be shrinking this government and their powers over us, over the world, and somehow gain our freedoms back.
Right.
Somehow, take advantage of these tax loopholes that Trump has admitted he's taking advantage of, and every other rich person. We need to find out some way to begin to siphon back our money, siphon back our freedoms, and move in that direction as a U.S. population, as a general U.S. population. And then you got guys like Vivek Ramaswamy talking about the size of the government and how he wants to look to shrink. Hey, let's promote somebody like that guy. We're talking about guys like Trump looking to. He did the original unveiling of this deep state, and it's this bureaucratic administrative body that is back in the. They're back in the behind the curtains,
Pulling the
strings. Okay, so we as the American people somehow need to push back. We need to apply whatever kind of efforts we can into promoting these people who are going to do this for us into power. And then again, we're going through inflation now. The price of gas is it's gone haywire. It's
Like
going,
$6.70 by my house
bro.
for the expensive shit.
So we definitely need to be moving in that direction. So instead of spending our time bickering about what's going on and looking for lines of division in what's going on, we need to somehow say, hey, I think I hear something that you're saying that I'm in agreement with. How can we take this agreement that we're having and push forward into this agenda? Let's get our freedom back, our movement back, somehow, some way.
There's a song on Spotify called American Flags you should listen to.
Oh.
It's pretty good.
You know what? You heard about the song in, everyone. I heard I don't know if it's true, but that Richmond, north of Richmond, is like the #1 song in the world now.
Yep.
I don't know if it's true, but I'd heard that.
Speaking his voice.
Speaking his mind.
But real quick, slight change of subject. There was a Formula One race, and I think it was in Germany. Those people that like to protest and glue their hands to the floor.
Ah, yeah.
These people protested this race because they're protesting fossil fuels on the race.
Wow.
And this shows you the stupidity sheeple, right?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of sheep on.
They did it, and it was an electric car. There were electric cars racing.
They're idiots.
So I don't know what you were protesting, but they had one guy, a security
They're
guard, come.
protesting the Green Deal.
They had a security guard
Green
come and
Deal.
pull his hand and realized he was stuck to the ground, and he went like this, and now two ginormous German men, I don't know if they were
Plucked
law
him.
enforcement, pulled him off the ground like his hand wasn't even stuck.
Pop.
He came off the ground, got him off the track.
How'd that hand look? Did they show it?
They didn't show it, but I'm telling you, he wasn't feeling good after that. Because concrete is porous,
Yeah.
and if you put any sort of glue on it and you stick your hand there,
Your hand's coming.
concrete ain't coming up. That's all I'll tell you.
There's idiots out there, man.
Oh man, they're everywhere.
They're sheeple. But again, you listen to those people. Is there any so this whole objective that I just spotted out there right now? Is there any way of aligning with those people and moving forward on anything?
Well, I think it
Can we share any like common ground with these folks?
I think
And
there's
say,
a
hey,
lot more people out there now that are thinking like you were speaking. Because I think a lot of people are just flat out tired of the bullshit. Because there are certain things happening that 2 years ago you and I would have said would have never ever happened.
Agreed.
So I think it's changing. Like I said when we first started this podcast, that the pendulum swings both ways, and the higher it goes one way, the longer it takes to come back to the middle.
And then the higher it goes in the other direction.
Yeah. So I think that the pendulum is swinging downward, back towards the at least the sane part of the world. But unfortunately, it has to swing back up the other side.
So I'm wondering what that's going to be.
I don't know what the other side might be going back to the 50s or 60s. Who knows? And it might, like I said too, I think we need a reset. I think we need a massive somebody finger on the button holding the reset for 3 seconds.
So what would be the ideal reset era, or what would be the ideal
To reset social media. To reset the fact that
You know what's funny, Steve? You are. I watch you on your phone to a fault.
I'm playing video games on my phone.
Yeah, right, bro. You're
Look
not
at my phone
TikTok?
anytime. Bro, I don't have a TikTok. Find my TikTok.
I think my man is the most.
Find my TikTok. I challenge anyone. You
Number
find
one.
my TikTok.
Instagram.
You have a fucking Instagram.
I'm not on it.
Do we have an Instagram page for our podcast?
We do, but I poorly keep up with that.
Yeah, you're
So-
much like an elderly individual who doesn't like technology. So.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like it. It's just I'm always in the moment. I always try to find myself in the moment, unless I'm taking a shit.
Unless you're on Instagram.
Unless I'm taking a shit. And then when you're taking a shit, then you might find me on Instagram.
All bets are off. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so if the reset consists of people only on social media whilst they take a shit, then by all means, go ahead.
Right.
I don't give two shits if you get rid of Instagram, Facebook. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't bother me. I'm not on Instagram.
I definitely.
all
You know
the
what?
time.
Crazy
Because
shit.
if I text you on Instagram, I have your number and I'll just text your fucking number.
Sure. I like that idea. Text numbers.
Yeah.
It's so much more personal, intimate. But anyway, I took that little trip to Alaska, right? Crazy shit is that people actually live in real life. I was out there and I didn't see very many people walking around on their phones. There was the occasional, but there were people that were actually enjoying the moment. And I thought, wow, this is kind of, this is a comforting feeling to be around people who still enjoy real life.
Right. So reset it to when there was no phones then.
No, I mean, not. I don't even know if I want a reset. I truly don't know what I want. Personally, I mean, I respect that want for a reset, but in all reality, man, life is just such a life is such an awesome thing if you want it to be.
Like when you leave, if you left your phone at home and went to work, is your day ruined?
No, I can't because all my work comes via, and my dispatcher contacts me through my phone.
Point blown.
Right.
So if it's a Saturday and you're not working, and you left your phone in the house and you went to the
no.
grocery store, is
We're
your day
good.
ruined? Yeah.
No.
That's what I'm talking
Matter of
about.
fact,
Get to the-
when I go and work out, there's no phone around.
Maybe reset to the point where people don't need their phones 24 hours a day.
Right.
And I'm
No one
guilty.
really
I'm guilty
needs-
of killing time with my phone.
Yeah, no one really needs their phone.
Guilty of it. But there was a time when I was growing
unless
up
for work.
when you didn't have a fucking phone.
I didn't have my phone. I didn't get a phone until I was 20. I think I was 20 years old before I got my first phone.
I think I was around the same.
No. I was actually 21.
I think I was around.
I was 21
I think I was
when
around
I
20
got my
when I got
phone.
my phone.
It was 1999.
I had a Nokia brick. Remember that?
I've had
Where the only game on there was the snake.
hey, I've had the same phone number since 1999.
I can't say that because I try to avoid some people. So I changed my number.
Same phone number, bruh.
Good for you.
1999. Never had a different phone number.
Oh, good.
Hey guys, and I think with that, you've heard our perspective, our remembering of 9/11, what it's caused, the directions that we
What we think.
saw
Yep.
the world moving in.
Perspectives.
You know, and again, what are we doing? We're sharing our ideas. We're sharing the thought process that's valuable to us, and then hopefully we get a chance to talk to you one day. Our 123 subscribers.
And the Dodgers won the National League West for the 10th time in 11 years.
And my Chargers are 0-2.
Is that right?
But
Early
it's
season.
early season. Hey,
And your
still a lot
schedule
of
only gets tougher.
yeah. 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 So with that, I think we bid you farewell.
That is it.
Here we out. Hey,
Say hi.
say hello.
Hello.
What's your name?
Hello.
You're Adam. This is Adam.
Okay, say bye.
Say bye.
Say bye.
Bye bye. Say bye.
Say bye.